Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Art Club. So, last month we talked about Bob Ross, and so the challenge for Art Club was to kind of find a Bob Ross recording and do it along with him, kind of paint along with him, or if you didn't have paints, then whatever you had on hand, just kind of follow him along and try out one of those things. So, I'm really curious to know if you guys actually did that and to see how your pictures turned out. So, I think I'd mentioned like offhand in the video last month that I was going to do one, but I don't have any oil paints. Like that's not really something I do. But I did have some oil pastels and black paper. So I decided to try following a Bob Ross technique or a Bob Ross video, but like not using his exact technique. So I did use just oil pastels, which are kind of like really vibrant crayons that you can kind of blend. They're a little softer than regular crayon wax, so you can blend it either with your fingers, which I like to do, but this time I used a little sponge and it ended up working out okay. So I wanted to show you what I made. So the picture that I was referencing, okay, so this is the picture that I was trying to recreate. And I know it's really small and that was the best like possible version I could find. But you can see it's kind of like a winter scene, which is sort of why we chose Bob Ross last month, because he did do a lot of like snowy, wintry scenes. And I thought that would be kind of fun to do. So I chose this one. It was a video that I found on YouTube. I will actually link that so that you can follow along and make your own if you would like. But let me show you the version. So that was his. And then this is the one that I came up with. I'm actually really pleased with how it turned out. And as you can see, like this is just plain black paper in a notebook. And I used Crayola oil pastels, nothing super fancy. You can get them at Michael's. And actually, I also used a little bit of crayon in a couple of these too, some of the lighter colors, some of the browns and stuff. But it actually, like, I am not a good drawer at all, but it turned out really, really well. So, Bob Ross is a good teacher. But yeah, it's just a winter scene of like a little barn or a cabin in the woods there for winter. So I'm pleased with the way that mine turned out, and I would love to see how yours turned out. So if you did follow along with a Bob Ross video, let me know. I'd love to see your pictures or your paintings, whatever you managed to do, would love to see. So I was thinking too about what we were going to be doing for January's art club for starting the new year. And New Year is a time when I think, we think a lot about ourselves. So we're like, what did I learn this past year? How did I grow? How can I change this coming year? What things, like, we make New Year's resolutions and stuff. So it's a lot of like reflection on the self. So that kind of guided me in choosing this month's artist. And she is one of my favorite artists. So we're going to jump right in. All right, so the artist that we're talking about, again, because it's sort of self-reflective time for us, you guys know what selfies are. Like, I'm sure that you have seen selfies, you've taken selfies, you've probably seen people taking selfies. So you know what selfies are. And people have been doing basically versions of selfies since as long as there have been people and as long as there have been art forms. Even back to like the cave drawings, that they have found from ancient people. They would put their hands up, and then like use their own hands in the artwork and kind of trace around their hands on the cave walls. So in a way that is sort of a form of self-portraiture, which is what we're going to be focusing on today. When you say a self-portrait, that is a piece of artwork that you make in the image of yourself. So the person that we're talking about today really focused on that, kind of had the corner market on it. So we are going to be talking, oh yeah, so self-portraits, again, it's a form of art where the subject paints him or herself, the first selfie, and one artist in particular specialized in that. That artist is Frida Kahlo. And so we have here, there is both a painting and a picture, like a photograph of Frida. And you may have seen Frida before. She's famous for that unibrow. You may have seen pictures of her before or like heard of her before, but not really known her story. So we're going to get into that a little bit. So Frida Kahlo was born in 1907 in Mexico. At age 6, she caught polio, which is a very bad disease that luckily we have a vaccine for now. So most people don't end up getting it. I think it's like a standard vaccine that you get when you're a baby. But at that time, they didn't have the vaccine. And so she ended up catching polio, and it permanently damaged her right leg. During school, she was known as something of a prankster. She always had a really good sense of humor and loved kind of making mischief, playing tricks and pranks on people. She often wore elaborate jewelry and colorful clothing and was fond of piling her hair on her head and decorating it with brightly colored ribbons and bows, in the fashion that the natives of Oaxaca, Mexico favored. So she definitely claimed her Mexican heritage. She was very proud of that, and it featured a lot in her personal style, but also in her artwork. So she regarded every occasion as a cause to celebrate. Everything that happened was a good enough excuse to have a party for Frida. Um, Baptisms, birthdays, all popular holidays, she really dove into celebrating all of them. When she was 18, she was in a horrible bus accident and ended up breaking her spinal cord, her back, her collarbone, ribs, pelvic bones, leg, foot, and shoulder. They weren't sure she was going to make it, but she did survive. But she was very, very badly injured in this car accident. So she was never able to attend school again after that or have children after the accident. So that really impacted her life in a lot of ways, because I think she always wanted to have children and but couldn't because of the damage done in the accident, and then of course not being able to finish school either. So it was a very hard time for her. She spent the rest of her life in and out of pain, just as a result of both the polio that she had as a child and the car accident. And she often spent a lot of time alone. And so some of that is reflected in her paintings. So here I'm going to share a couple pictures. She always loved art, though, always loved art. Was always creating, always painting, and she even had special easels created so that when she was recovering in bed, she could still paint. So you can see two different ones here. You can see the one where she's like upside down painting, um, lying down, and then when she got a little bit better, she had one that was kind of able to be rested on her lap. So she was still able to paint even when she wasn't feeling well. She had no formal art training, so she didn't like go to school for it. Again, she had special easels that allowed her to create while she was recovering. And she admired the Mexican artist Diego Rivera and approached him about her art. They met, they ended up getting married. He was 20 years older than her, so quite a big age difference. But they both were successful artists, and they later separated, divorced, but then they remarried again. So he was always kind of the great love of her life. There is a picture that she painted of them. I can't remember if this was on their wedding day or not, but I know that this is a picture of that she painted of them, and honestly, it's pretty much what they looked like. So we're going to talk about Surrealism. So Surrealism is a movement in art and literature that developed in the 1920s, about 100 years ago, characterized by strange, dreamlike images. And this came about because there was a way of thinking that the way to find truth in the world was through the subconscious mind and through dreams, rather than what we actually see around us, that there was more truth in the stuff that you dream of, like really crazy, outlandish, really weird stuff. So a lot of the art from this time period has what we would call like a surreal quality to it, which just means it's not really based in reality, or it is based in reality, but it's a little bit absurd, a little bit ridiculous. I'm going to show you some examples of surrealist art. So you can see I have some examples here, like this car that looks like a lizard over in the corner, the elephants that have like tubas for heads instead of like the trumpet trunk, they have like an instrument as their heads. And then this room where the walls are made out of the sky and the floor is made out of water. That's kind of surrealist stuff. It's stuff based in reality, but like really weird, kind of like I say, stuff you might see in a dream. And Frida was often labeled as a surrealist, but she said no, that she painted her reality, that everything that she painted was stuff that she kind of saw around her. It was the way she saw the world around her. But she did travel to Europe and to New York in the United States to show her work in surrealist exhibitions. So she resisted the label, but it is how she got to be known in the art world. So um, it's interesting to see her work. I'm going to show you some pictures and you can decide, see what you think. In the 1940s, she taught art students at her husband's urging, and her students became known as Los Fridos. So they spent a great deal of time with her at home and in her studio, but they never saw her paint. She liked to do that in private by herself. She painted alone, and that has led some people to say that that was like a form of therapy for her, that like it made her feel better. It was something she wanted to keep to herself. So I'm going to show you, move out of the way. This one is called the Flower of Life, or the Flame Flower. So again, you can see why people might label her as a surrealist, because it definitely has that sort of dreamy, like it's almost real, but not quite quality. But again, she always said that this was just kind of how she saw things. And it does look like, it looks like that flower looks like a person, right? Because it's got little hands. It looks like maybe the sun is out, or maybe a planet up in the sky, but at the same time there's lightning. It's definitely a plant, like you can tell that because of the leaves, but it also, like I say, has almost this like human sort of look to it. So a little strange for sure. Um, so she was active in Mexican politics in the early 21st century. And that's the other thing that she was known for, was that she was very active in the political happenings of Mexico at that time. She died in 1954. She was 47 years old. So that probably seems really old to some of you, but 47 is quite young. She was a strong voice for women at a time when women did not have as many rights as they do now. And she became a symbol of perseverance and strength, especially for women. She wasn't scared of her husband's fame and talent, and she chartered her own artistic course and created work of enduring power and significance. So all that to say, she was married to a very famous artist, but in some ways she surpassed his fame. I think probably more people have seen or heard of Frida than they have of Diego Rivera. So it's interesting, and she definitely overcame a lot, of her physical struggles, and some of her emotional stuff as well, trying to become an artist, and she did that. So she is definitely somebody that I kind of look up to for that. So let's look at a couple pictures of Frida. Her favorite subject was herself. She often painted self-portraits. She loved her pets. She had a lot of pets, and so she often included them in her pictures as well. You can see two different ones here. She has like, it looks like a monkey in one, and then her birds, her parrots in another. And these are two interesting ones. So the first one, where she's in the pink dress, is her standing on the border of the US and Mexico. I'll move myself. There you go. You can see the American flag there in the US side, and there's sort of these like machine looking things right here, but they almost look like they have arms, right? They kind of have that same surreal quality of, like, they almost look like people, but they're definitely machines. And then on the Mexican side, you see a lot more nature. You see the plants down at the bottom with their roots going into the ground, and you see the Aztec or Mayan temples over on the side, and the sun and the moon. So she visited New York and had a lot of opinions about the United States versus life in Mexico. And so that picture is kind of her expressing that. This other picture is a self-portrait she did of herself. She's in a wheelchair. And the man that she has painted in that picture is her surgeon, who treated her throughout her life. And it's kind of a simple picture when you first glance at it, but the more you look at it, the more the details kind of stick out. Her palette is shaped like a heart, like a human heart. So again, with that surreal, kind of strange imagery. And then, of course, we have a photograph of her, so you can see what she actually looked like versus how she painted herself. And she did definitely have a very prominent look with her eyebrows, really strong eyebrows, but she kind of just embraced it and was like, you know what, this is my look, and I'm going to go with it. And you can see her bright clothes and the flowers in her hair, and she just had a very distinct look about herself, and embraced it and painted herself in that way, instead of maybe painting like an idealized version of herself. She painted herself as she saw herself, and there's something really cool about that. So this week, or this month rather, we're going to be inspired by Frida. We're going to do some self-portraits. So with whatever you have, crayons, colored pencils, markers, paints, Play-Doh, whatever you want to do a picture of yourself. And if you'd like a little bonus, if you have a pet, you can include your pet, because Frida often included her pets in her artwork. So think about that as you move into this new year, as you start kind of, thinking about that. Maybe draw a self-portrait of yourself at the age that you are now, and include the stuff about you that maybe you're not super comfortable with, or the things about you that you do really love. Just include all of it. Like, draw yourself as you see yourself. And I can't wait to see your projects. I hope that you all have, or had, a really great holiday season, and hopefully we will all have a very good new year. So enjoy. Make sure if you post a picture of your art project that you tag us or let us know. You can comment that on our Facebook or our Instagram. Just tag us at Maitland Public Library, and I will be happy to share that with everybody else. So enjoy. Have a happy new year, and I'll see you next time. Bye.